Hi, welcome to the podcast Open Minded. So, what's currently going on in the news? You see it everywhere. There's this cop that killed George Floyd, and because of that, now people have started attacking cops, stores, and other things. They started destroying things, and then they started labeling cops as pigs, as killers, and other things around. Like, I know this has happened before with there's that young guy that had a hoodie on, and he got killed too. I don't remember all too well. And I know it happened to Alex. My brother Alex. There was this Asian lady that labeled him or accused him of stealing a power generator only because he was walking. He was walking in the street.
So this happened about a year ago when while I was walking to downtown Pomona, and so I noticed it was nearby a chop shop, and there was this little establishment that looked like a house, and I saw this Asian lady from the corner of my eye following me, and she followed me up to the light, and once I crossed the light, halfway into the block, I noticed a car was following me, and I turned back, and it was a police car. So I turned around, and it was this Latino male, and he asked me, "Oh, can I ask you a couple of questions?" And I said, "Yeah," and I stopped, and he came out of his car. He didn't point a gun at me, or he wasn't using force, and he just asked me if I could sit down on the curb. So I sat down on the curb, and he began to tell me that the Asian lady that was following me, that she was accusing me of stealing her power generator. And I responded by saying, "Well, what am I going to do with a power generator? I'm just a college student, just wanting to take a walk to downtown Pomona." So he told me that that I didn't look like a person who would steal, or especially a person who would steal a power generator. And he just told me that, and she just told me to have a safe walk. And I mean, I didn't feel at any moment did I feel as if I was being accused, or if I was threatened with the police officer. And there was 3 other police officers that came. So, but at any moment did I feel that I was being racially profiled or discriminated or anything. It was more, I guess, with the Asian lady, who, because I'm Latino, so it was more from her side that she, seeing me as a minority, she probably thought I was the one who apparently stole the power generator. So, and that's the issue, because what we're seeing, I don't know if you saw the video in downtown LA in the freeway. I think it was the 101 where there was 2 police cars driving in the freeway, and the freeway was it was blocked by a bunch of people, a crowd of people, and the police isn't the cop car isn't gonna ram through the big crowd of people, because that's criminal, that's bad. So they began to damage the police car, and the police wasn't doing anything. So the police just calmly drove away, but the people protesting, they began to vandalize the car. They even broke the windows, and there was another car, because there was I don't know who exactly it was. It appeared to be an African American male, and he got on top of the first cop car, and he fell off, and he hit his head. And it appeared that the second police car stopped, because he stopped right next to the guy, I guess to see if he was reacting or if he was breathing. And well, it looked like he did. So he drove away, but before that, they broke his window too. So, and the thing is that we're seeing big poster papers of people accusing police as pigs and killers, and yeah, there's people saying that people don't kill people, but cops kill people, and I mean, people are killing people at all times, and that doesn't mean just because one cop kills an African American male doesn't mean every single cop kills people. Like it's like, for example, what we're always seeing from the Catholic religion, there's priests that rape and molest kids, little kids, and I mean that's it's really bad because at the same time, I mean they're maturing, so it's just very nerve wracking. And what's gonna happen to these kids once they get raped and molested? They begin to question their life at the same time, and there's many cases where they commit suicide. They just get into drugs and they destroy their life.
It's basically just to get rid of that pain because, let's say, they were raped, and if they keep that in their mind, I'm like, it's always gonna continue. It's always gonna continue like hurting them. So like the only way that at least they see that they could cure it or get rid of this pain is by ending themselves, which is really not a good thing. You could try getting it treated. I know like you're not gonna be this, like, let's say the person, or they're sane, but like let's say like the sane person that they were before they got raped or anything. But at least at least if you talk about it, if you open up about it, it might help. It's with anything, like with any problem, and like it's just like I think that's why a lot of people tend to, like, well, at least nowadays, there's like religion is not really like that big anymore because like they see the cruelty, and then of course like the internet, like you get information so easily. So like now at least people don't really have, like, let's say like they don't have a way of living because at least at least how I see it, like I'm not religious. That's because of my own beliefs and all that stuff, or the things that I believe. But I do follow what I was taught in church. I don't really believe that there's a God or anything like that, but I do follow like what they teach, and at least some people don't, let's say, don't take that in account. And and at least when they look at a situation, they don't see it with optimism or with an open mind, because like let's say the kid that got raped, and like he sees this, he sees like the church or this big organization as like clean, pure, but when you get, let's say, when you get stabbed in the back, or well, of course when you get raped, you start seeing it with a different eye.
And well, the issue is that also in like priests, they have these protocols they have to respect. Like, for example, the 10 Commandments. There's a commandment that says do not commit adultery, gluttony. So, I mean, like, you have all these prayers. You're constantly praying. You're constantly hosting church, like mass, and this is still happening. But the thing is that it's not like everyone is approaching the situation of these priests the same way they're approaching with the police. It's like it's obvious. Like, you can't, just because one person from the same group did something that didn't respect the regulations, that are supposed to be followed in their field, that doesn't mean that everyone in that field is what they did. It doesn't mean they're killers. It doesn't mean they're rapists. It's so like that shouldn't dictate their fate and their future. It's
it's basically like let's say like if a kid is born into like a bad family, right? That kid, like, yeah, he's born in a bad family, but that doesn't mean that he's gonna be a criminal like his dad. Like, and like people at least they tend to, yeah, like they tend to label kids like that. Like, let's say kids that are in a foster home, or they're in an orphanage or wherever they go. Like a lot of people have that in their mind. I'm like, oh, how about if this kid that I'm about to adopt came from a bad family, and like let's say his dad was a drug addict or he was a criminal, he's gonna be one too. But no, in reality, it's not that.
Oh, yeah.
It's like if, let's say, I think it's more of an upbringing. If you could show the kid or like what's wrong from right, or vice versa, he will be a different person from his biological father. And yeah, like I know, like, yeah, I know some people that, yeah, they came from a bad family, but they're a way better person. It's like, yeah, of course you do see some characteristics of their father or their mother in them, but they don't let that control them.
Yeah, well, it's I mean, it might be a little different in the situation of a child who suffers from fetal alcohol syndrome, which is basically a syndrome when the parents they consume a lot of alcohol, and the kid before he's born he's already predisposed with the effects of alcohol. I mean, he might be born to be an addict of alcohol, or the damages, having a damaged liver or other internal organs. So, I mean, in that situation, it might be a little different, but that doesn't mean that the child is going to end up the same way his current parents are. Like, it's...
So they're all like, yeah, like they're genetically, they're more prone to be addicted, but like it's just you could fight the urge. You can fight the urge of it. Like if you see like addicts, yeah, like it's so hard for them to quit. But if, let's say, they're strong-willed or they're able to fight that urge, I'm like, they could quit.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's many doctors that say it's like it's good to see that, for example, in the situation of an addict, that he's going through withdrawal, and when he's sober, when he or she is sober, and they go back to consuming drugs, that's a good thing, because it means that slowly they're readapting their body, and that addiction is gonna slowly start to fade away. So I mean, it's a difficult situation, but I mean, it doesn't mean that just because they're addicts, they're gonna be an addict for their whole entire life. It's
well, we see like examples of like people that also they like escape like crime-ridden areas or like drugs, and they become athletes or big stars.
Yeah, it's like for example, LeBron James. I heard that supposedly, I guess he didn't have his parents, or maybe one of his parents. And he came out of a very very poor community. dominated, I think, mostly by African Americans, and yeah, there's a lot of poverty and crime. But now, if you look at it now, LeBron James is one of the best basketball players in the world, and most likely in history. And there's sometimes when people compare him to Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, it's like the person he ended up becoming, and seeing his upbringing, seeing where he was raised, what community he was raised in. I mean, if you read articles, statistically, it's there's a very slim chance you could make it out of a community ridden by poverty and crime. The probability it's very slim, and yeah, he ended up becoming one of the best paid athletes in the world, and he's also helping his community. He I think he just funded a school for students coming out of poor communities, and basically providing them with education, and also training them in sports. So, I mean,
yeah, and then like if you see, like those people, they came out of, like, let's say a very shitty situation or a very shitty place that they grew up in, and like let's say when somebody asks them like, oh hey, like now that you're here, where did you came from? And then like let's say I'm like, yeah, I came from, I don't know, like from Mexico or something. I'm like, oh, that's a very bad place. So like, well, that's why I got out of there. I got out of there for that reason, like, because I want to improve. I want to do something better.
Yeah.
And but like people always have that thing where they'll judge you right away, only because you're from this place. I'm like, oh, then I'm like, be careful with him. He might steal your car or whatever. Like,
it's like also the situation in Mexico. Like you hear that famous speech that Trump gave a while back when he said that Mexico sends rapists and drug dealers and killers. And well, it's true that Mexico, it's dominated by
the cartels or crime.
By the cartel and crime and drugs. And it's true that they force Mexicans that are immigrating to the U.S. to improve their lifestyle, improve the situation with their children, get them a better education. They're forced to traffic drugs, to transport drugs into the U.S.
Because that's the only way they could afford to actually come in.
Like there's drug dealers in Mexico, but that doesn't mean that just because there's some drug dealers, it doesn't mean that everyone's gonna become a drug dealer, you know, or like that everyone's gonna become a killer. It's there's some good people and there's some bad people, but it doesn't mean that everybody's gonna be bad, and it doesn't mean that everyone's gonna be good. It just depends on the person.
Yeah, it's like, it's not like, there's those few people that come in, but not because of those few people, only because of those few people that are coming in that come in with a bad, let's say, like, they come in doing bad things, or they come in to do bad things, doesn't mean that the whole group is bad.
Oh yeah.
It's only those individuals. Only those individuals that come in like that. I'm like, it's like if you say Arabic people, like a lot of people label them as terrorists. Let's say like some of them are not even nearby there, but only because they look like it, all of them are. I was like, no, dude. I'm like, it's like, they're like, they have their own religion, but there's those there's those like people that think all erratic and all that stuff, and they follow, I don't know, this section of their Bible or whatever they call it, only because they follow that, and they do terrorist acts and all that stuff only to please, I don't know, their God, or I'm not sure what exactly it is. Doesn't mean that all of them. And if you see now, other races get attacked too. Like I think I've seen an article of I think it was this guy from India who got attacked. I'm like, he's not. He lives or he's from India, not from the Middle East, but only because they somewhat look familiar. Like only that they look a bit like, let's say, what a terrorist looks like. Then he gets attacked too. Only because I don't know. I don't feel secure, or because he looks like this, like, I don't know, this profile that I have of terrorists. And yeah, and then like if you see, yeah, like the same thing, like, yeah, like what's going on right now with the whole protest. Like, yeah, not all cops are like that.
Hmm.
Not all cops yeah, it's like if you're saying that like let's say only because one person is racist or does something bad, not all of them are gonna be the same thing. It's like I have a few. I think I have, like, I know my friend's brother. He's a cop, and I have a friend too. She's a cop too, and yeah, like I feel bad for them, for the situation that they're in, because like they have to go in there. They have to go in there and I don't know if, like, combat the protests, or not combat the protests, but like the violent protests.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and then like if you see people, only because they see that only because they see that a few people go in and like do something bad, then all of them could. Because like let's say one person can't really like influence the whole group, but if they see more than one person in there doing it, then they'll be like, oh well, if I don't know, this group of 10 is doing it, then I could do it too.
Yeah.
I was like, anyways, how are they gonna find me?
And I mean, it's not saying that it's not defending the police who killed George Floyd or anything,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, it's obvious. One police killed George Floyd by applying all this force on his knee, right on his neck, and well, there was 2 police officers holding him down, and there was another one stopping the crowd of people. It's obvious all of them did something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
The other 3 cops were being bystanders because they didn't do anything about it. I mean, in that situation, they should have pushed the cop over, and if he was unconscious, they should have quickly applied CPR
Mm-hmm.
in order to get his consciousness back. And yeah, like they should be, I mean, punished for their actions, but like, yeah, that doesn't mean all cops are gonna become killers, or there are killers. It's like, for example, I don't know if you saw the video, and it was another video from LA, and I think it was yesterday when the protests were going on. There was a police who was arresting a protester, and he was just holding the man from his hands. I think from handcuffs or from his hands, and he was in the middle of the big crowd of protesters, and they began to hit him. They began to throw objects. They began to punch him, and not at any moment did the cop punch the guy he had arrested or people in the crowd. And what happened? There was one good person who saw that, and he just backed the cop off. He was protecting the police. He was telling him to back off because, I mean, the situation would most likely become worse. Maybe putting his life at risk. And yeah, like, the cop didn't use force. He didn't punch anyone. He didn't use a baton. He didn't taser. He didn't shoot anyone. And I mean, it's sad because I mean, if you look at a situation, for example, someone breaks into your car, who are you gonna call? You're obviously gonna call the police because it's something you can't solve on your own. I mean, you don't possess the knowledge or the technology to find the fingerprints or find the person. You need police to come in. You need them to intervene and help you find the person who broke into your car or stole your car.
But and then like if you see that might depend on like where you live too, because like let's say I don't know, like I live in a very bad neighborhood, right? Obviously the cops are gonna like focus on other things that are much worse, and at least how I see it is like they don't do anything.
No, yeah, well,
like so I'm gonna get I don't know, like let's say I think of them as like them being very lazy, as very they're being very lazy and they don't do anything at all. They don't do their job. So I'm gonna take it into my own hands.
no, but like,
And then like let's say, especially like let's say if I'm like, well obviously I'm colored, but like let's say I'm like this group that they tend to attack more. Like yeah, of course, like I'm gonna see them like like if I call them in, they might kill me instead.
yeah, but I mean, it's also you have to. I mean, so you're basically saying you're giving an example of coming out of a poor community, right? For example, in that situation, if you're coming out of a poor community, and almost everyone living in the community is they're poor. They're part of the working class. It's most likely that I mean, if the police takes a long time to arrive, it could be because I mean, if it's a poor community, there's most likely more crime. So there's more demand for the police officers, and depending on the severity of the crime or the situation, it's gonna. I mean, there's gonna be a time constraint, and there's gonna be. They're gonna set priority on certain situations more than the others. I mean, they will most likely respond back to you or arrive to resolve your situation, but I mean, yeah, like there's already a very high demand, so I mean that's one thing you have to take in consideration. Like, it's not saying that like they don't care. It's saying that it's just it's difficult. There's obstacles in order for them to resolve your situation, and yeah, of course, like there's, like I said, there's obviously bad police and there's good police. I mean, we've always known this. It's been witnessed and it's been recorded on video. Like, it's like, for example, Shaq. Like, you see Shaq. Shaq is a police officer, and I don't know exactly in what community, but he's a police officer.
Sheriff, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah, so for example, you said he was a sheriff, so you know, is it saying that he's also going to be a criminal? It's obviously not. I mean, you see him going to poor communities and playing basketball with a bunch of kids, and like you see videos of police officers buying food for poor families. It's obvious that not all of them participate in those type of crimes, and yeah,
it's just pretty much like not only because one person is bad doesn't mean that all of them are bad.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, just pretty much just take that into account, and like don't judge everybody only because of like one person act like this.
Yeah, don't like just quickly jump into conclusions and start labeling everyone.
Yeah, because at least with that cop, how stressed out do you think he was dealing with that person, and then like especially if he started fighting back or all that stuff. I'm like, of course, I'm like it's you might have to deal with like a life or death situation. I'm not saying that he is or he was in a situation like that, but you have to take into account like your life too.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's like the amount of stress they experience in their field. I mean, that's why not everyone is a police officer or a sheriff or a highway patrolman or security guard.
Because you don't know what
yeah.
the person might have. The person might be hiding a gun or whatever it is.
It's obviously, I mean, it's obviously right. Like, but it's like, for example, there was also a situation where an African American male was pulled over by a cop, and I mean this situation was bad because the police officer told him, "All right, so can you pull out your license?" And he asked him to pull out his license, and once he was about to pull out his license, the police officer just gunned him down. Like, yeah, like, I mean, you asked him to pull out his license. What do you expect? Like, the man obviously looked calm, and he was obviously complying with the police officer, but yeah, like, and I mean, yeah, it's obvious that like the tactics used, they had said that the tactic that the police officer used against George Floyd, it's not in the rule books. I mean, like, it's obvious that there has to be change, and they have to enact. I mean, the political leaders need to enact certain regulations and different changes in order to prevent these situations
and then,
from continuing. So.
I think in order, let's say, to prevent this a little bit more, like the average person has to have like a protocol of like how to like if a cop is pulling you over, I'm like, what do you have to do? Not act all erratic. And yeah, just taking account like how stressed out the cop is, and like, yeah, of course, if you act out, he's gonna act out too.
Well,
we're all humans.
The thing is that man wasn't like he wasn't trying to fight back. Like, he was the man wasn't doing anything wrong after the point he was detained, but I think like there needs to be like a way that they could prevent like all these events of like police brutality. There needs to be a way to prevent that.
Or like at least if a cop has a partner, they have to follow a protocol too. I'm like, hey, like it's too much. I'm like, calm down.
Or maybe just having racial diversity among partners. So, I mean, you have a white male and you have an African American male being partners, or African American male and a Latino or Mexican.
But either way, I think, like, let's say a certain cop might still have his own ideas too.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter if like you diversify like all the groups or the teams, like that's not gonna really matter. But
well, it depends. It could. I mean, it'll most likely decrease the incidence of this happening, because I mean, if you have a Latino, if you have a Mexican, a Latino partnered with a white American, and the American, he, for example, arrested a guy, and like he's dragging them across the ground, and the person isn't doing anything. If the person being arrested, if he's Latino or black or any other race other than white, he could just be responsive and tell the cop, hey, like, this is going too far. We need to treat him the right way, because I mean, we're putting his life at risk, and we're putting him at risk of getting an injury. So,
what I think I could do to probably prevent this from happening again is that they could almost every cop has a camera on their shoulder. What I think they could do is probably like find a way to somehow live stream the cameras to the police department, and possibly have like someone monitoring them, kind of like how securities at stores have like all those monitors where they can see all the cameras. I think they should probably do something like that, so someone could be watching what the cops are doing at all times.
Yeah, it's gonna be expensive to actually put that in, but it'll help out. Yeah, I think this concludes this episode. Thank you for watching, and bye.